Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intuitive Alchemist. Before we get started, let's just take a moment to center ourselves and take a deep breath in through our nose, recognizing any tension, and breathing out, letting it go. Doing that one more time, breathing in through your nose, recognizing any anxiety or tension or anything you're holding in your body that's making you feel those things. Just let it go. Breathe out and let it go. And this time, let's do one more, but let's focus on our connection to Source. Deep breath in through your nose, feeling that connection that we have from Source coming down through our crown chakra deep into our heart space, and then breathing out, letting that love flow throughout our entire being. So today I wanted to talk about something very, very important when it comes to spiritual growth. Basically what I want to talk about is near-death experiences. I'm sure there are many of you out there who have had them. And I just thought it would be helpful to take the time to share some of mine. I've had 3, and I'd like to do just a little series talking about each one, because each one was in its own way more significant, especially the last one. But we'll start with the first. And I do want to just put out a caution that if anyone's ever, had a strong, fear of drowning or anything like that, you may want to skip this one, because it does involve a near drowning experience. But there's a happy ending, I promise. So, so yeah, take that for what you will. But here goes. So, growing up, I grew up in the church and in a very, very strict religious system. But I mean, it was good in a lot of ways. There were other ways where it was more restraining spiritually, not so good, but still there were a lot of good fundamentals that I had learned. And the most important thing that I had learned was, the importance of God and knowing that God is with us all the time. So when I was a teenager, I was roughly 15 years old, I had been in Boy Scouts, and I went on a whitewater rafting trip. And it was something that I was, excited about. It did seem kind of scary too at the time, but I was still excited. I remember, however, there was a concern about this one particular area that we were going to be going over. There were even, signs, and like there was histories around the park where we were going about what had happened there. And there's this one particular spot where a number of people had gone over this group of rapids or falls, and there had been a good number of drownings there over the years, like some, I want to say 15 to 18 or so, just a number of them. And it's just a spot that people were really cautioned to be aware of and careful of when going over. We had some guides too who were with us that were aware of this. But when we all got in our boats and we started, we had been practicing before that, when really spent a lot of time learning how to do whitewater rafting, and it was a lot of fun. We had done some other kinds of rafting before that, like we'd done whitewater canoeing before that, and just practicing with the raft and everything else. But we went out that day, And lo and behold, our boat, and I wasn't the one in charge of the boat. We had a couple of adults, and there was a guide in the front who was, supposed to be kind of steering us and taking us where we were meant to go. And then there was another guy in his own boat who was just kind of doing his own thing, and he kind of came up to the guide in our boat, and he was kind of doing that thing where you see two people stopping at a red light, and one of them challenges the other to race, and the guy in our boat was like, "Yeah, let's take him on, let's do it." And he's like, let's paddle, let's go really fast, and let's see if we can beat him." And so I was like, okay, whatever, So we start doing it. Um, and then I realized, like, we're headed for the exact falls that we were told to be very careful of and to avoid. Didn't seem to enter the mind or the conscience, whatever the right word is, the awareness of any of the adults in our boat at the time. Or if it did, they didn't say anything about it. And we ended up going right for this one spot. The whole time I was just like, okay, I guess we'll see what happens. I'm trusting that everything's going to be all right. And lo and behold, we get to that spot, and our boat goes over the fall. There's just this incredible rush of water everywhere, and the loud roaring of basically a waterfall. I mean, it wasn't a huge waterfall, but a decently sized waterfall that we were going over. And then, like, the feeling of, you're like when you go down a roller coaster, like the pit of your stomach just dropping out like that. As we hit the bottom, our boat like landed on its side. Now, when it did, like, we hit with enough force to where we went under. I was wearing a life jacket, so was everybody. But there was so much suction in this one area that it didn't matter. I felt myself being pulled directly down into the water and had a moment of panic. For years, I had been a swimmer. I had been on a swim team. And I'm like, I know how to get out of this. I can swim, right? I have a life jacket. This should be fine. Nothing I did, no matter how hard I fought, I couldn't fight against that current. And it just kept sucking and pulling down. And I had only gotten so much air before going over. And I remember like that moment where I'm like, I'm out of air. What do I do? What do I do? Okay, there's only one thing that I can do. I have to trust. This is going to be hard, but I'm going to do it. So I felt my connection to God in my heart, and I trusted. And I felt such an incredibly profound sense of comfort. And then I started sucking water in. I remember thinking, okay, I guess this is it. If this is how I'm going to go, I trust you, God. I trust that this is all going to work out and that I'm safe. And as I started choking and gagging on the water, I still felt that strong sense holding me the entire time. And I kept thinking, this is the end. And I kept feeling my moment coming closer and closer of my spirit leaving my body. But I knew that when it did, that it would be going where it was meant to be. at some point, I passed out. I don't know for how long. I woke up to feeling myself gagging and puking on in the raft, and someone had been pounding on me and getting the water out of my lungs. And I remember just being stunned for a moment. Like, am I still alive? Am I still here? And I'm in the back of this boat, and there's water rushing around me. My lungs are burning. It felt awful. And yet at the same time, that connection was still there. And it was stronger than ever before. And I realized it was more than just a matter of, God being this distant entity, this distant, bearded, angry guy on a chair, condemning and judging everything. But I realized that just on a soul level, that I was in some kind of incredibly, intensely deep connection with the creator of everything. That connection had been there the whole time. And it took an event like this for me to fully start recognizing it. When I say fully, I mean, I'm still growing to recognize it more every day. Thankfully, after that, it turned out that the guy who was responsible for us going over that waterfall was the one who had pulled me out. So, he apologized. I think he felt pretty bad. And forgave him and let it go and all that. And then I spent some time, being looked at and everything, and making sure I was okay. And I had to be really careful for a while. I had some challenges with asthma, but, recovered. And not only recovered, haven't been the same ever since. We're collectively hearing more and more right now about how, in like the awakened community and the, maybe truth community, about how mankind has to go through some kind of near-death experience. And many of us already have, right? But sometimes it takes something like that for us to fully recognize the power that we have, healing us, protecting us, keeping us strong, and manifesting through us. And as we are aligned with that power more, the more we can choose to manifest a negative reality, a negative outcome, or a positive one. And that's of love. One of an earth where consciousness has grown to such an extent that we're no longer constantly going after each other to get ahead. Rather, we're building each other to rise as one. I would love to hear any near-death experiences that any of you have had. I would be so grateful, knowing that it can be hard to share. So share what you feel comfortable sharing. But I'm grateful for whatever that might be. And to be continued, because there is more. There have been more experiences that I'm going to share that you know, I've shared with a few people here and there, and who are awake, but had been quiet about them for so long, because when I try to talk to people who were more asleep about them, I would get shut down. So, I feel though that others who are awake have encouraged me to share these experiences, because they help to build and grow our awakening process, and they're a part of me shining my light. So I am blessed to do it, and I am blessed especially by all of you who have listened, who have taken the time today. May this bless you, may it serve you, may you continue to grow and alchemize your fears into your success.